世界嘅香港，大家好。香港時間早上7點鐘，收睇緊嘅係 Action World 世界頻道。請嚟嘅嘉賓呢，就係 Nicole Isaac。咁今日咧我哋會用廣東話同埋英文咧一齊互動嘅。So, Nicole, it's a pleasure to have you appearing at Action World YouTube channel. Yeah, this is the second time. Yeah.
Hi.
Actually, it should be the third time. Second time was at the World Hong Kong Forum. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. First time was when I visited you in New York earlier this year.
Yeah.
Now, I guess with the extreme makeover in Hong Kong, and we have around 20 minutes, I want to ask you um, about um, how you think about the situation now for those who live inside of Hong Kong, what should they do? And for those who live outside of Hong Kong, what can be done more? But first and foremost, I want to introduce you as the person who appeared on Twitter with Jimmy, and you are the lady who made Jimmy cried. Like during the show, we were very touched by your comments when you were on Twitter with him. Of course, we cannot see it anymore, but in today's thumbnail photo on YouTube, actually that's print copy of Apple Daily during the very last days of Apple Daily. So, which I kept a copy. So,
Oh,
welcome,
thank
welcome.
you. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Now, you lived in Hong Kong for quite a number of years before you left, right?
Yeah, 11 years.
11 years. And in during those years, you um, becoming more and more concerned about the autonomy of Hong Kong would not be sustained. Should I
Yeah.
put it this way?
Yeah, I became, obviously, I lived in Hong Kong. I was interested in the local political scene, what was happening there. I had a very, I have a background in campaigning, democracy, activism. So, of course, I was very interested in what was happening in Hong Kong. As I started to navigate what was emerging as the local political story, Occupy happened, and that galvanized my interest. I thought that
Mm.
Occupy Hong Kong was amazing, really, quite a fascinating and brilliant expression of people's will. Then, obviously, after Occupy, things became a little bit more subdued, and then we had 2019 and the protests. I left in the middle of 2019, but was there for quite a lot of the development of the protests. I moved to New York, where I've kept an active interest and engagement in Hong Kong politics.
Yeah, and you witnessed the 1 million and 2 million rally. Yeah, during the extradition bill.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Now, this is what 3 years since the extradition bill issue, and it's also 2.5 years after the enactment of the national security law.
Yep.
A lot of the dissent they have left, and those who remained in Hong Kong, they are um, pretty much all imprisoned, as you can see from the ticker downstairs.
Yes.
And I mentioned Jimmy Lai, the media tycoon, that probably is the public enemy number one for the CCP.
Mhm.
Now, a lot of people think that his fate will be like Liu Xiaobo, who was sentenced for. Actually, he was detained for around 12 years,
Yeah.
and then he died during his detainment in China. Now, Jimmy is already 75, and then he already is serving sentences for two alleged violation, which is illegal assembly, and also one so-called commercial crime, which is a fraud charge, right? So
Yeah.
that's already 6.5 years.
Yeah.
So that means he will be 81 by the time these sentences are finished.
Yeah.
But then the NSL, it's the maximum penalty is a life sentence. That means he might die in prison. That means he might become a martyr. The CCP is making him a martyr. What do you think of that?
Yeah, in many ways, yeah. I don't think they want martyrs. and I don't think they are too concerned that he may go in prison for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
I think they are trying to break his spirit. I mean, the fact that
Mm.
he now won't have his NSL court date has been postponed for another year now, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. September next year.
And they announced that a day before or a day after um, they gave out the verdict for the tenancy, the breach of tenancy, the so-called breach of tenancy.
Mm.
I think the delay of the trial came literally the day or two after or before his verdict. I mean,
Yeah.
to punish him on a civil case, to punish it like a criminal case,
Mm.
the tenancy conditions. I think they're just trying to break his spirit and punish him over and above what kind of punishment being in jail would be already. For sure, he is the him amongst all the 47 pound Democrats and all the other young people, the nameless people that are in prison, the young people
Yes.
that are in the young people whose names we don't necessarily know. I can see you've got
Mm.
here. I guess Jimmy is one of those figurehead people, and I think they're trying to crush him.
Yeah. I look at Jimmy's, and probably you have watched the Hong Kong, right? Like
Yes,
in New
yes,
York. Yeah.
yeah,
I look at him. The current situation is like Christ's crucifixion,
right,
of course. And wow, you, you know, like I mean, as people with faith, and I know you have your Jewish faith. I have my Christian faith. I do pray for everyone who was unjustly detained and imprisoned.
yeah.
Um, but on a broader scale, now how can people in Hong Kong um, remain to have a hope if they are so repressed and suppressed by the totalitarian regime? And Hong Kong it's turned into from a semi-autonomous region to a police state now, like in and a
Yeah.
half short years. How can people remain to have hope in a city like Hong Kong?
I'm not sure if I'm able to answer that question because I'm not in Hong Kong. I
Yeah,
haven't. I guess I'm freer than Hong Kongers to even express what I want to say because I'm out of Hong Kong. I'm not out of the grasp of the national security law as reach because I know it's a global law. It's applicable globally. Um, I, I guess they just have some kind of faith in their hearts, but I'm sure a lot of Hong Kongers have given up on hope as well. And I
mm,
don't know what that feels like. I know being outside of Hong Kong, it feels futile at times. It feels like, what's the point? Will there ever be any change? I think, when you look at human rights across the board in China, one wonders. But then, I witnessed in New York a few weeks ago an incredible week of activism
mm,
spurned on by mainland Chinese students. Starting on Sunday night when there was a gathering of about, I'd say, 150 students
mm,
mourning the deaths in Xinjiang in East Turkestan because of the COVID measures. Um, and that was like, wow, 150 mainland students mostly. In fact, I'd say
yeah,
exclusively, I was the only Hong Konger there who had a candlelit vigil in Washington Square Park. Most were masked, but they. And then the next night at Columbia, there was about, I think, 600 students.
mm,
And then the night afterwards outside the Chinese consulate in New York, there was over 1,000 students, mostly mainland Chinese students and other people, protesting about COVID measures. Women were protesting about the Me Too movement in China. It became a really big event. And then the week after, Hong Kong's Tibetans, Uyghurs, Chinese all got together in Washington Square Park. So there was this kind of activism, and there were, more importantly, mainland Chinese students who were prepared to step out
mm,
and be active. And as we know in China, things did have changed because of the COVID measures. So those things give me a glimmer of hope that not that the CCP are listening, it's just that they are afraid of dissent. That's the thing they fear the most. So there may be small hopes, and I know that people won't. That their hopes for Hong Kong, their hopes for China, for democracy,
mm,
won't die. Their ability to do much is severely
mm.
repressed. And, when you see people being arrested because of online statements, regardless of journalists and Stan News and Apple Daily, when people even are liking something and they're getting arrested, then, that is intimidation. But I think you can't put down a Hong Konger spirit. I think we all know that.
Yeah.
We've seen that. It's the Lion Rock spirit, and I think you can't put that down.
Mm.
Whether people always have hope of seeing change in their lifetime, I don't know.
Right. There are so many others, as you alluded to earlier, not just Jimmy, but so many um, names that are not too well known. Not just the 200, but actually close to 2,000 are detained now. But the government's trying to decide whether they will charge an additional 600 of them. Yeah, so that's the sad story. Now to go deeper into the fighting spirit, how do the Jewish people remain to have hope? I mean,
2,000 years of history. Um, I think up until sort of maybe 100, 150 years ago, the idea of perhaps a homeland was an idea that wasn't necessarily a reality. Even if it was declared in prayers 3 times a day, it became a political necessity and a reality due to lots of um, world events. How do they keep hope? Oof. I guess it's faith. It's faith, and it's a desire for change, and it's desire for a better world. I don't know if there is a magic potion, a magic reason or answer why. I think often it is faith, and it's religious faith. I think Ed has been cut off, and I'm not sure if I'm still live. So bear with us if Ed. Yep, he's back. Hi.
hi.
You're back.
Yeah. Yes, I'm back.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think faith and hope. I think hope. The national anthem for Israel is called Hatikva, and that means hope. And I think it is. It's hope. It's a vision for a better future. But as I said, I don't live in Hong Kong now. I can't imagine what it's like to live in fear, in intimidation. I can't imagine what it's like to possibly be charged if I've been arrested. And I can't imagine what it's like to raise children who are going to go through an education system that wasn't as liberal as their own.
Yeah, it's a re-education process since kindergarten now.
Frightening. It really is absolutely frightening, especially for a generation of parents who went through a very liberal education, a very questioning education, or even their generation before them, the British education system.
Right. I also see, the so-called tycoons are concerned now, because well, before they believe in the free market, and now everyone is highly surveillance, and some of the older age tycoons, they are thinking this is like what happened in Shanghai during the 1950s, escaping from Shanghai to colonial Hong Kong,
Right.
and they have to do it again. I mean, with the NSL in place, so it's like history repeating itself.
I guess in some ways, yes, yeah, and there would be the older generation who came from China who very much fear that. Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think
So
some tycoons, for their own financial and egotistical survival, will drink the Kool-Aid, as they say, and will either genuinely or pragmatically become pro-CCP or pro-China, either to protect their money or their interests. And I think people who genuinely oppose it all or are anxious about it all may choose to leave Hong Kong.
well, I guess well, it seems like there isn't much we can do, but at least, like if we keep talking about Hong Kong, talking about voicing out the genuine concerns that Hong Kongers have, whether they live in Hong Kong or outside of Hong Kong, it is important. people might have different views about your last president, but I guess for Hong Kongers, they think that the sanction on some of the Hong Kong and Beijing officials, it's something uh, that was right to do at that time. I mean,
Right.
from Carrie Lam to um, Lok Hoi Ling and um, the security chief John, what's that? I forgot his name. John Tang, yeah, and then and then John Lee, the
Yeah.
current CE,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Yeah. So it's something
Yeah.
um,
No,
that
I
was
believe that,
a
and
good decision.
yeah, and there's still legislation going through that will highlight problems in Hong Kong and penalise Hong Kong officials or organisations. Absolutely. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the big questions when I went to the UK at the beginning of this year and at the summertime as well, one of the big questions my Hong Konger friends were saying was, how did the Jewish people survive in exile? How do we keep Hong Kong alive in exile? How do we teach our children?
Mm,
And it was a really touching and significant question that people, some of those people were relatively young in their marriages; they didn't have children yet, but they need to pass that hope for freer Hong Kong onto their children, and they need to pass on the history, the culture, the everything. And I think that needs to happen. And I think they're already asking those questions. How do we continue in exile?
mm, mm. I think we all can learn from the Jewish too, because it takes like 2,000 years to regain the nation, right?
Yeah,
Put it this way, after it's lost. So nothing is impossible, and then we need to have a hope um, for Hong Kong, and then the Lime Rock spirit. It's inside our heart, and then we won't give up to raise our concerns to those who are detained. Definitely, too
sure.
many of them,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
we keep fighting. I
yeah,
think we
absolutely.
need that fighting spirit.
Yeah. I do think it's very important to keep up the profile of those detained, partly because I think the families need that support, really. I think
Yes.
obviously not everyone's parents or families supported what they were doing, but there's a lot of families, whether they are blue or yellow. I mean, I think the people detained need support. They need
Mm,
letters, they need cards, they need that kind of encouragement
yes.
so that they're not forgotten.
Mm,
And all the trials need to be highlighted. I know, sort of, certainly Jimmy Lai's case. A lot of the cases are highlighted very well in the
mm,
UK and in the US. Whenever something's happening, they are reported on, and we need to keep making sure that those cases are amplified. And
yes.
yeah,
Yeah. And for next year, actually, there is an exhibition on the Apple Daily, the story of Apple Daily
right.
at the University of Toronto
Wow.
from January 9th to the 20th. And then I bring a large stack of the front page. The last half year of Apple Daily,
Right.
actually, it's secured and it's shipped to Toronto.
Oh,
And I shared it with Mark Clifford's group
right.
recently. So
Nice.
we'll be doing it concurrently um, in the next couple of months.
Nice.
So if you so happen want to come to a colder place, a colder country called Canada, please join us on January 9th to
Right.
20th. And then the talk will be on the 16th,
Yeah.
I think, on a Saturday.
Which faculty is sponsoring it?
Actually, it's at the University of Toronto Robarts Library,
Right.
the Asian Library. Yeah,
Right.
we are doing that. And then the next stop will be in Vancouver and then Calgary.
Wow. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But more
And
important,
I think part of the point of all the things that everyone's doing out of Hong Kong, in the UK, in the US, and in Canada, Australia, is to let Hong Kongers back home know that people are still doing it. They're still staying active. They're still trying to give a voice to people whose voices have been, I wouldn't say taken away, but
yeah,
whose voices have been silenced.
yeah.
Hong Kong people are still not voiceless. There are probably other
Mm,
ways of expressing how you feel, but
mm,
obviously there's that fear of expressing yourself. But I always think that's the most important thing is, sort of put it on social media, put it out there, let Hong Kongers know that that people outside of Hong Kong who have the freedom
mm,
do it can. I think one of the Chinese students actually said to me, I said, what's motivated you to come out? And she said, I've been in the United States now. I've got freedom of expression. I'm obliged to use it. Use my freedoms for China.
Yeah.
I think.
And the last comment I want to make to Nico is starting in 2023, once every quarter, we will meet up in Toronto for the Toronto chapter for the Action World channel. We will be not just gathering for eating, but meeting up in the library at the Central Library in Richmond Hill. We'll be spending a few hours to write letters to those who are detained right now.
Nice.
So not just gathering for social activity, but they're really
Nice.
yeah, because there are some specific addresses, because these are like NSL alleged detainees, so will be sent to a centralized place for some designated people, and they'll be redistributed to prison, because some of them are afraid to have a return address, which shows their linkage. Some
Right.
people are not comfortable to do it, but some people are eager to write. So that will be
I
something that
must,
we'll be doing.
I must say it's extremely difficult. I sat down to write a letter to Tiffany Yuan, and I just, because of the restrictions on what you can write,
Yeah,
so painfully difficult to know what to say. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. We absolutely should be writing letters, but it's very, very challenging within the restrictions of what they're allowed to receive and what we're allowed to talk about. And
right.
one comment means that letter doesn't get through. So it's like a further restriction on their liberty that they can't read, and can't even communicate with it. It's not even controversial, but is not really safe.
Yeah,
Very,
yeah,
very frustrating, very difficult writing letters.
yeah. So we'll be running some mini workshops every season, and
Brilliant.
spend a few hours doing the work. And I hope that will be the short term plan for us in 2023. And
Brilliant.
while
Nice and constructive
yeah,
and important. Very
yeah, and
important.
while being acutely aware of all the trial dates,
Yeah.
not just Jimmy, Chow Hang Tong,
Yeah.
Ho
Yeah.
Chun Yan, and so many others.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the 47.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I guess we have to keep hope alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you so much, Nicole, for being so supportive of Hong Kong, Tibet, Kyrgyzstan, um, and so many
Peace.
other places.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
Pleasure.
and God bless.
God bless and Merry Christmas.
Yes, thank you.